Abdulrahman Thani, the Prime Minister of Qatar, recently sat down with Tucker Carlson to discuss the recent media attacks on Qatar and its values. The conversation shifted with the World Cup, which was held in Qatar a few years ago.
Thani expressed his disappointment with the coverage, which focused more on lecturing Qatar about its values rather than the tournament itself. He believes that the purpose of hosting the World Cup was to bring the world together, but instead, some countries and NGOs used it as an opportunity to attack Qatar's values and impose their own. Thani pointed out that Qataris are free to come and go as they please, and they choose to live in Qatar because of its values, not in spite of them. He also believes that there's a sense of racism and superiority at play, with some countries thinking that Qatar is not capable of hosting a world-class tournament.
The conversation then turned to the topic of human rights, with Tucker Carlson sharing a story about the United Nations pressuring Qatar to build nursing homes for its elderly population.
Thani believes that this is a reflection of the country's values, and that it's not necessary to change them to suit the West. Thani also addressed the criticism that Qatar is anti-American or pro-Islamist. He explained that Qatar has always been a U.S. ally and has worked closely with the U.S. on various issues, including mediating conflicts and bringing Americans home from abroad. The conversation also turned to the topic of Qatar's relationship with Iran. Thani explained that Iran is Qatar's next-door neighbor, and that they have a lot in common, including a shared gas field. He emphasized that Qatar needs to maintain a good relationship with all its neighbors, including Iran, and that they have a working relationship on environmental and security issues. Thani also discussed the nuclear program in Iran, stating that it is a concern for the region, and that Qatar opposes Iran getting nuclear weapons. He emphasized that a nuclear program should comply with international standards, and that Qatar is working with the Iranians to ensure that this is the case. Thani expressed hope that a diplomatic solution can be reached, where there is prosperity for the region, sanctions are lifted, and the nuclear program is peaceful. He believes that this will be a booster for the region's development and prosperity. The conversation also turned to the topic of a potential war with Iran. Thani is deeply concerned about the possibility of such a war, believing that if the US were to attack Iran's nuclear sites, it would be the start of a war that would spread throughout the region. The repercussions would be severe, affecting not just Iran, but also its neighbors, including Qatar. Thani emphasized the importance of addressing the concerns of all parties involved, and finding a peaceful solution that takes into account everyone's needs. He emphasized the need to go back to the basics, referring to the Madrid Declaration in the 90s, which aimed to integrate Israel into the region through economic normalization and a political horizon for the Palestinians to establish their own state. The conversation ended with Thani discussing Qatar's stance on net zero emissions. He pointed out that the country's primary concerns are security, food, water, health, energy, and education, and that climate change is a secondary concern. He revealed that the IMF had predicted that no one would want to buy Qatar's natural gas in the future, but Qatar had taken a risk and invested in expanding its gas production. Overall, the conversation with Abdulrahman Thani provided valuable insights into Qatar's values, its relationship with Iran, and its stance on various regional and global issues. It highlighted the importance of understanding and respecting different cultures and values, and the need for peaceful solutions to regional conflicts. Main learning from video. The Prime Minister expressed his disappointment with the media coverage of Qatar, which focused on lecturing the country about its values rather than the World Cup. He believes that Qataris are free to come and go as they please, and choose to live in Qatar because of its values. The conversation also touched on human rights, with the Prime Minister noting that NGOs are more interested in imposing their own values on Qatar rather than addressing real issues. The Prime Minister also addressed criticism that Qatar is anti-American or pro-Islamist, explaining that Qatar has always been a U.S. ally and has worked closely with the U.S. on various issues. He emphasized the importance of finding a peaceful solution to the conflict in the region, rather than resorting to war or sanctions. The Prime Minister also expressed his concern about the possibility of a war with Iran, which would have devastating consequences for the region. Overall, The conversation highlighted the importance of understanding and respecting different cultures and values, and finding peaceful solutions to conflicts. The Prime Minister's message is one of hope and cooperation, and a desire to work towards a more peaceful and prosperous region. Key takeaways include the importance of cultural understanding, the need for peaceful solutions to conflicts, and the devastating consequences of war. To access the complete 8-minute summary and unlock detailed insights for each topic discussed in the video, please subscribe to quick podcast summaries on Spotify and Apple Podcasts with free trial and later, just for the price of candy in most places. Happy listening.